The struggle is real. Hello, YouTube. Hi, it's me, Miss J, and here I am once again tonight in the Champagne Dreams Productions branch office. My name is Janessa, and I'm North Dakota's trash queen of glam, geek, and gore. And tonight we are doing another one of our Pride chats. If you're noticing, it's very horizontal today. These are usually vertical lives. I do them on my phone. I don't know what is happening, but YouTube is on its shenanigans again. And so we were not able to connect. I tried 5 times to start the stream and it would not stay connected. And so I am frustrated. I am definitely frustrated. Hello, Janet. Nice to see you. I'm glad that I can see some chat coming in. Hopefully, we'll see some people joining us here. Replay crew, you rock. So definitely leave your thoughts down below. But if you're coming in, definitely say hello in the chat. Hello, CJ. How's it going? So we started this live about 5 different times, and so it is going to be an adventure, and this is going to be strange. And I don't do very many horizontal lives, and my screen is messy. Let me go ahead and push that. Let me go ahead and just get that schmudge off the screen. So hello, Rainbow Rose. Hello. Hello, Mama Champagne. So now I'm on my laptop. So I have my laptop that I sometimes use to record here. Hopefully everybody can hear me because sometimes the sound is weird with the laptop. And now I don't know where to look because usually I can just look right at my phone. And now I have to, the screen is here, but the camera is actually up here. So I'm going to try to remember to stay looking at the webcam, but I also have to look down at the chat. So hello. So we just have a lot going on. Hello, how are we doing? How's everybody doing on this lovely Wednesday? I'm excited that we're here for a Pride chat. I'm frustrated that it's horizontal because horizontal lives don't get shared in the scroll. Although I don't know if they're doing as much of that anymore. I don't know if that is something that's kind of died off because it's something that was really big for a while, and that's when we saw a lot of the trolls. That's when we got a lot of the Thursday popping in, was when people could just scroll through and we would get a lot of ugly people just happening in. I don't know why this is happening. I mean, it did have queer in the title. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but YouTube, I've been doing lives just fine for a long time, and all of a sudden YouTube decided to have a problem tonight. So maybe they are salty about this topic as well. But we are going to be talking about how the term family friendly is actually an anti-queer dog whistle, and why, if you are involved with planning, organizing, anything to do with LGBTQIA plus events, you should not use that. You should knock it off. We're going to talk about why, and we're also going to talk about why the people with the no kink at Pride can go get absolutely wrecked. So we're going to talk about that. Everybody's saying hello. Dion is here. Hello. Missed anybody? I do have it changed to all the chat, so I will see all the chat, hopefully. But Janet is here, CJ is here, Mama Champagne is here, Rainbow Rose is here, Dion is here. Well, hello. We're happy to see all of you. Yes, so we did connect a few times, so I'm letting it, as we usually do, I'm kind of letting the first 5 minutes or so before we really dive into the topic. It's kind of like a podcast. This is why I've done podcasting, and I don't even like listening to podcasts that much, because have you ever noticed how there's always something that they advertise as like the topic, but it takes them like 5 to 10 minutes to get into it? They always just kind of rattle on about other things. I never understood that. I didn't do podcasts like that. And so and people always told me that my podcasts were weird because I didn't follow the typical sort of idea of what you were supposed to do. But yeah, so we'll let a little time go. And then we have this situation. So my hair, I still like it. I like this kind of light lavender pink that we have going on. It reminds me of Lavender Blonde, the blush from House Labs. And as always, when I go on the computer, it's reversed. And so then I get all confused and I start reaching the wrong direction. So if I'm trying to move my hair, it gets weird. It's weird. But this is fading a lot faster than I thought. Now, the tube that I bought was a really big tube, so I can keep updating it, and I'll keep adding some more pink and, things like that. But I can say that I'm not terribly impressed. This is my first time trying out Arctic Fox hair dye. I usually use either Lime Crime or Manic Panic. And I don't know that I'm very impressed. It does fade down very nicely, so I like the way that it looks. It does have, because again, I said when I do my hair, I don't want it to look like just a block of like one color. I like that there is some shade variation. Some of the blonde is kind of peeking through, but I definitely am not really enticed to buy more Arctic Fox with how quickly this is fading and how quickly I'm going to have to retouch it. So that's something as well. But yeah, so hello, how's everybody doing? Besides my hair issues, I am mid. Oh yeah, today has just been one of those days. I'm just waiting. If you're going to win the lottery, you have to play the lottery, and I'm real tempted to start again because every day that I go to work is another day that I could run screaming into the woods, never to be seen again, and just become a cryptid, like just become part of folklore. It's the shenanigans are never ending, and so today was another one of those days where I'm just like, salty. And then we're going to talk about something that's kind of salty and a little bit controversial, and actually has been kicking off on my TikTok again. And that's kind of what inspired this. Is actually I had a post that off on my TikTok again, and that's kind of what inspired this. Is actually I had a post that on TikTok, I had a video or whatever, a TikTok that last year went pretty viral for me. So I have, and I was much smaller last year, so very petite, but I think my channel was at like 2,500 last year around this time, and then now I'm at about 34,500. So still very small, but like, so I typically, sometimes it pops up, sometimes there's something that hits and it goes or whatever, but typically my views on TikTok are in the like low to mid hundreds. So we're talking like 300, maybe 400, sometimes 500 or 600. But that's usually kind of where it sticks at. Every once in a while they drop down into like 150 to 200, somewhere. So it's kind of, but it's in a range that's predictable. And every once in a while something will just kind of kick off, and maybe I'll get 1,000 views, or maybe I'll get 1,200 views. Last year I put up a post and it got 32,000 views. It grew over a while, but I had a good 48 hours that were really, really crazy trying to keep up with this post that was really kicking off. And then now I've got a post that is basically the same kind of thing. I decided to poke the bear a little bit this year. Not 32,000, but we're at over 11,000 for this year. And basically it's the same video where what I did is I used as my sound, I used Lily Allen, her song Fuck You. And it's this short little snippet that they have. If you're on TikTok, that you kind of use their pre-approved music or whatever. And a lot of times it's just little snippets that you can use for little skits or whatever. And there's one from Fuck You by Lily Allen that's just, no one wants your opinion. No, fuck you. Like, that's the little sound. If you've heard the song Fuck You by Lily Allen, you know more about it. But so that's the sound. It's just that it's like 11 seconds long, something like that. And so what I did is I had put some little banner on the screen where it was like, when the No Kink at Pride people come out or whatever. And that has really kicked off for people. Like, that for some reason puts people in all kinds of moods. So we're going to talk about the No Kink at Pride. And a lot of that is tied in then to this idea of family friendly. So let's talk about the No Kink at Pride people and what the problem is with that. Because when people say no kink at Pride, they're not talking about kink at Pride. Because let me tell you, I've been to some kind of bigger prides. I've been to many smaller prides. I've seen the footage that people are complaining about. I've seen all of that kind of stuff. And let me tell you something very clearly before we even get started. Before any little keyboard warriors that might wander across this video and be like, well, stop. I mean, I'll take the engagement. We know I'm a whore for the engagement. So the algorithm isn't to pick a bitch, and neither am I. But before you get all blah, 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 Not any of my fabulous people who are here in chat, but you know that you're fabulous. But they're always acting as if people are fucking at the Pride Parade. Nobody's fucking at the Pride Parade. I cannot tell. And if they were fucking at the Pride Parade, yes, those people should be arrested. That should be a thing. Like if people are actually having sexual activity. But let's talk about what actually constitutes sexual activity, because that's the thing where people get tripped up and they start to show their ass or whatever. Because what people are doing that is not sexual activity, somebody wearing a leather harness is not sexual activity. Somebody wearing a pup hood is not sexual activity. Somebody not wearing a shirt and wearing a Speedo is not sexual activity. Somebody wearing a leash is not sexual activity. Those are costumes. Those are outfits. Those are clothing. Those are not sexual activity. Just because they are sometimes in some contexts associated with sexual activity does not mean that those items in and of themselves are sexual activity. So if somebody's on a leash and somebody's walking them around, that is an element of kink and kink experience. That is not sexual activity. Rose just gathered up her stuff and walked out my door. I'm saying she's not trying to be rude, but the hell. Oh, no. That's all right. Yes. Hello, Rose. Thank you for joining us while you were here. But yeah, so none of that is sexual activity, but people want to act like that is sexual activity. And I don't know where that comes from, but like actual queer people will be like, that shouldn't be there. This is Pride parades are supposed to be family friendly. See, it always gets tied back to that. Kids don't need to see that, whatever. Kids don't need to see adults playing dress up. Like kids play dress up all the time. And if you have to have a conversation about what that dress up means, that's your fucking job as a parent. Period. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired. And this is where I'm going to go on one of my rants, and feel free to disagree with me. This is kind of a hill I'm willing to die on, but feel free to disagree with me. I'm always open to new perspectives. But I'm so tired of lazy parents. Just because something exists in the world and you're like, oh, that's awkward, I don't know how to talk about that or how to explain that, doesn't mean that you're entitled to then say that thing should disappear from the world. If you are going to be uncomfortable with that and you don't know how to address that with your children, don't fucking go to the Pride Parade. Stay home. Stay the fuck home, because you're a lazy parent. That is a conversation you need to have. And in some cases, you might not even have to have it, because kids will be like, oh, that person's dressed up like a puppy. Okay, let's go over here where the rainbow flags are. Like, kids are not as like deep diving into some of these issues as people think they are. Now, some of them are. Some of those kids want to ask every question. They want to get up in everybody's business. But there are age appropriate ways to talk about all of these things. And so it's one of those things where I understand that like legality is not the same as morality. And sometimes just saying that something is legal is not a great defense. But in cases where something is very subjective like this, in terms of like how people present themselves in public, I think it is important to say what these people are wearing, the bits are covered. So legally, they are dressed in a way that is legally appropriate for wherever this parade is happening. If they are not, if they are coming with, titties hanging out, that's another issue. If that's illegal in your area, then yes, that should be dealt with, because that's not appropriate in public. But it's not appropriate because it's a queer person acting out some sort of like part of their sexual experience or whatever in a like public sort of way. It's because the bits are out, right? And it's illegal for them to have the bits out. Not because it's kink, but because the way that they are expressing it is not appropriate. In the same way that if somebody was sunbathing on a beach that's not a topless beach and they just whap their titties out, yes, there should be consequences to that. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's kink. A pup mask is not sexual activity. And this is important because this is a lot of the language that's happening, these drag bills that just won't go away. All of this stuff, and that's why a lot of the first round of drag bills really failed, is because these Christian knotheads that were trying to push all this shit through were trying to equate being in drag with sexual activity. And so because they found it lewd or they found it distasteful, they wrote these bills as if someone being in drag was the same as somebody getting their tits out or somebody like having sex in a public place, which they are not. And that's why so many of those early drag bills failed, is because once you put it up against a legal standard, it immediately fell apart. Now, that's why a lot of these bills are coming back. And if you notice, there are a lot of red state legislatures that what they are doing is they are considering bills that redefine what adult performance means. And they're trying to present it, they're trying to say that just being, and usually, I'm not saying that trans men don't get attacked, but a lot of these bills are framed around the idea of drag queens. And this idea of like, they always talk about the large breasts and all this kind of like little leotards or whatever. Most of these drag queens are wearing so many pairs of tights and so many different things that you see less skin on them than you ever would see at a beach or anywhere else. But they're trying to redefine what adult performance means to include just a person in drag. Why is that dangerous? Because you know what? Once you start defining adult performance as just somebody being in drag, it starts to really muddy the waters. And that's where we get to the real intent behind a lot of these bills, is it starts to impact trans people. Because if it's not about the nature of the performance, if it's not about the way that person is acting or behaving, and it's just about the fact that you've got somebody who is being interpreted as somebody who is cross-dressing or whatever, then people are going to use that in negative, hateful, evil ways to attack trans people that don't pass. That's what they're trying to do. That's what they want to do. This is not a mistake. This is how the system is designed, is they are trying to use this to attack not only cross-dressers like myself, little creepy crossy like me, but also trans people, and being able to go after them and attack them when they exist in public life. All of these things come down to, at the end of the day, they're trying to not even exempt, but they're trying to restrict trans people from public life. That's why there's the whole thing in Kansas with the driver's licenses, because if you don't have a driver's license, how do you get a job? If you have to, or if you have mismatched things, how do you get on a plane? How do you get around and get to your job or get from place to place? I mean, all of these things, people sometimes don't realize that, like, there's what they say they're doing, and then there's what they're actually doing. Absolutely, most kids that I've known would look and move on, and there are laws against public nudity. Exactly. So all of these things, what they're trying to do is they're trying to exempt queer people, and especially trans people, from public life. They're trying to get them out of the way. And so that's why all of this no kink at pride stuff, and it makes me furious when queer people buy into this, because we need to stop. I'm so tired. That post that I put up where I had written that article for the High Plains Reader, all of this ties together, because it's all of this weird placating of the most conservative voices within queer communities. And I'm so fucking tired of it. I do not care what they think. I do not care what their perspective is. Shut the fuck up. I don't know what it is that you think you're going to get from the oppressor that makes you try to side with them. Hello, Grace. Welcome back. You came in right in the middle of a rant. But welcome back. We're glad to see you. I did finally get connected. And so I don't care what the more conservative people think, or what they think about it, or how it makes us look, or whatever. These people who want to oppress queer people, you are not going to get a special award because you play along with them. You're not going to get some special participation trophy because you sided with them over your own community. And once they start loading up the buses to take us to camps, you're going to be on the same fucking bus with the rest of us. So get it together, because this is not the time. 20 years ago, when things were a little bit looser, when things were maybe a little bit, they were heading in the right direction, maybe you had a little bit of leeway to be a little bit more frivolous and to get pissed off about dumb things that don't matter. We're not in that time right now. We're not in a time. If you look at the things that are going on in legislatures around the country, if you're looking at what's going on in the federal level with that tangerine twat, this is not the time for people to be fucking around and siding with the oppressor. We need to get rid of those people. If you are, I wish I had a better analogy for this, because I've heard some of my friends talk about this in terms of like ethnic and racial minorities, but they'll say not all skin folk are kinfolk. And I wish there was a queer equivalent. I haven't thought about. If anybody thinks of one, let me know. But that to me is so true. Is not all skin folk are kinfolk. Is that just because you are queer does not mean you automatically have a safe place with us at Pride. And that's something that I think Pride, we need to keep that revolutionary riot protest mentality around Pride. And if you side with the oppressor, I'm not saying you can't come to Pride. I'm saying that you shouldn't expect to come to Pride and think that you are entitled to feel completely comfortable, because people should call you out on your bullshit. How are you voting for this administration that's causing us these problems? How do you justify that? And then you want to come here and you want to party with us and you want to have the good time. But then when it comes time for the rubber to hit the road, then you're like siding with these people who want to like legislate us out of existence. Like, how do you justify that? It makes no sense. And so the people that they're trying to get rid of, they're trying to get rid of the leather folk, the trans people, the butch dykes. They're trying to get rid of the people who don't conform to this very heteronormative presentation, this very heteronormative mindset. And it's something that has happened over and over and over and over and over. And that was something that I referenced in that post, is that I got so tired of mainstream queer activism around marriage equality. I just couldn't even, I was like, I don't even have time for this, because they were just absolutely trying to sanitize queer relationships so much that they just were like, well, if we just kind of maybe appear as much like straight people, and if we try to like, you know, sanitize it so that there's no sense that like, oh, those people don't have sex, they just like buy a house together. And it is all about all of the benefits, like tax benefits and inheritance benefits and the over 1,000 legal benefits that come from being legally married. Yes, it is about that. But to act like, oh no, those are just two people who are just forming a legal contract to like blah blah blah. And here's the whole thing, is that like that whole equality thing should have been about those legal protections, and said, you know what, churches, if you want to hang out and like be hateful and say we're not going to marry people in our church, that's fine. Then those people don't have to come to your church and they don't have to give you their money. That's their business. We're talking about legal protections that apply to all citizens, not just Christians, because all of these like conservative people that want to talk about religious freedom, they don't mean religious freedom. They mean religious freedom for me, just for me. Maybe for other Christians, I might allow that, but certainly not for Muslims or Wiccans or Satanists or Sikhs or Buddhists or atheists or anything. It's just religious freedom for me. And so there's always been these get along gays that always want to go along with that. Well, let me tell you, at Stonewall, we talked about that in a previous Pride chat. That's who started throwing bricks. It was the black and brown, trans people, gender non-conforming people, the butch dykes, the sex workers, the queerest of the queer who had nothing left to lose. They're the ones who started throwing bricks. And so to then kind of sanitize it and try to act like, oh no, it's just a bunch of like little preppy white kids that were like, let's have a riot. And it's like, that's not the history at all. That's bullshit. And so when people want to say no kink at Pride, you're talking about those butch lesbians. You're talking about the dykes on bikes. You know, that's when we talked about the queer history. That's why Dykes on Bikes historically open a lot of pride parades, is because of the fact that lesbians stepped up during the AIDS crisis. That's why that's why the L is first in LGBTQIA+, is because the lesbians during the AIDS crisis stepped up and were often the only people who would go into the hospital rooms of AIDS patients. And a lot of them trained to be nurses so that they could do all of the things that actual trained, certified medical professionals refuse to do because of their prejudices. And so when you're saying, oh, but we don't need the dykes on bikes, that's a bad look, or we don't need the leather men, or we don't need the people in pup masks, we don't need the drag queens, my sincerest and most full-chested fuck you to the people who say that kind of shit. The no kink at Pride, that's what you're spitting in the face of, is all of these people who have been at the forefront of the movement, and they've been there out of necessity because they are the ones who are the most targeted, the most harassed, have the most to lose, are most often the ones who experience violence who have been killed in bias-related hate crimes. That's the people that are impacted. And so those are the people that, yes, we should be creating a safe space for those people. The No Kink at Pride, you don't like it? Stay the fuck home. Stay home. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear your bitching. And so let's talk more about this idea of family friendly and why this is an anti-queer, because it all wraps up together. Because when people say that events are family friendly, what does that mean? That doesn't give me any useful information about the event. It just says family friendly. Whose family? Which family? Does that mean it's safe for a family that's a throuple? That's a family. Now, me, I'm friends with a lot of queerdos and weirdos and all that kind of stuff. Is it safe for me and my chosen family? Is that who it is? People who are of other religions, is that who is family friendly? Because family friendly, whenever we invoke the family, there is so much about that is tied to Christian nationalism and Christian fundamentalism. Look at so many of these big Christian fundamentalist organizations that have done so much harm to the queer community for decades and decades and decades. Focus on the family, the Heritage Foundation. Any kind of right-wing, anti-queer thing that you can find, it's probably got something in the title that is either family, heritage, patriot. So it's all of these terms that are steeped in these people who have rabidly attacked queer people. So when you describe your event as family friendly, it doesn't give me any information about what that event is. And what it does is just tie it to all of this rhetoric that is so anti-queer. And people say, well, it just means it's safe for kids. Well, what does safe for kids mean? Because again, family friendly, what about my family? I'm a big old drag queen, but you're saying that drag queens aren't appropriate. So if you are, hello, Leia. Hello, nice to see you. Welcome. We're having a little pride chat. So who is family? Like, what family are you talking about? Because when we just use these terms in a very broad sort of way, it doesn't give you any useful information. And so people in the comments will always kind of spit back. They'll be like, well, it just means this. And it's like, well, if it means that, fucking say that. If it means all ages, then say all ages. If it means like a parental guidance, if it means 13 plus, say 13 plus, say 18 plus, say 21 plus. Use information that isn't tied to that history of oppression and harassment and targeting, and also just gives useful information. Like it's so like on the nose, easy to grasp, but people they just go into this like, well, it's family friendly. They want to be family friendly. And I run into this all the time. And I'm friends with people who organize the Pride here in Grand Forks, and I've been involved with it in different ways over the years, but I'm never that involved with it anymore because, well, first of all, because I used to run Pride a long time ago. And we had like 3 years, and then it just kind of fizzled out because we weren't getting any volunteers, and I'm one queen and I'm tired, and I was tired of doing it all myself. But the new Pride that we have, one of the things that frustrates me all the time is the way that they always want to go, we're one of the most family friendly prides out here. And I'm always like, you should not be using that term. You should not be using that term. And nobody wants to listen to me, and so that's it, is they always want to be like, oh, we have the most family friend. And it's like, well, not exactly, Mama Champagne. Not everything is for everyone. And I think that Pride should have a range of activities. I think there should be all ages events. I absolutely believe that there is a space and it is appropriate to have all ages events at Pride. But this idea that we have to sort of like box ourselves into everything has to be family friendly, No, I don't think we do. I don't think we have to do that. I don't think we have to make all of our events all ages. I think it's absolutely appropriate to have adults only spaces as well as the all ages spaces. And I think there should be a range of things. I think there should be things that maybe get a little bit deeper into some of what's going on and educating, and that can be 13 plus. And then there should be events that are 18 plus. And then, if there's events at bars and things, those can be 21 plus. There should be a range of events. Not everything has to be for every single person in the community. And what we end up doing is we end up alienating people who want to do those more adult activities, who want to do more of those, things that celebrate our queerness and celebrate the history of our communities, which is about our sexuality and our gender presentation, and things that sometimes get a little bit more adult and things that get a little bit more spicy, and people want that to be part of the pride celebration. Because what they're doing is, when they go, like, everything has to be family friendly, then what you're saying is that all of those other things that make up our sexual identity and our gender presentation and all of this, that's not family friendly. That's not, that you're not part of the family, that you're not part of the group that's allowed there. So what they do is they're saying, oh, it should be open to everybody. It's not saying it's open to everybody. When you say family friendly, you're saying that the people who want something that is more geared towards other age brackets, that's not appropriate for pride, that's not something that should be celebrated at pride. And that's bullshit. Trying to take the sex out of your sexuality has never gotten anyone anywhere, because again, the people who want to work against that are never going to give you your little cookie, never going to give you your little participation trophy. It's not going to happen. And for the people who claim to be allies, that's another rant we're going to get into. The people who want to claim to be allies, but they're only going to be allies to you if you're willing to sort of take the sex out of sexuality and only going to do the most all ages family friendly events, then they're not really your fucking ally, because they're not coming to like meet you and learn and be the actual truth of who you are in the community. They're like, I'm supportive, but only if you edit yourself and restrict yourself and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. Then you're not a fucking ally. Because let's talk about ally. Let's talk about the term ally. This one, I said it was going to get spicy. I hope you're enjoying the spice. Because ally, sorry, I started to confuse myself. Because ally is not a term that you can just take on for yourself. And that goes for anybody trying to be an ally to any other community. You can say that you want to be, I'm trying hard to be an ally for this community or whatever. But you don't just get to say, I'm an ally for X group. That's not how it works. Because that's not just like a thing that you pick up off the shelf. It's not a crown that you just pick up and you just put it on your head and you get to decide that you're an ally. Being an ally is something that other people, the people from that group that you are trying to help and support, will say about you if your behavior matches. If your behavior lines up to what it means to be an ally for that community, then they will call you an ally. That's how you become an ally of that community, is when the people in that community recognize, like, that person's good. You know, the idea of being invited to the cookout. When somebody says you're invited to the cookout, you don't just get to invite yourself places. Like, somebody else has to tell you, oh yeah, that person, they're good people. That person is looking out for us. That person supports us. That person understands what it is that we are trying to accomplish, what we face, and is doing their best to try to help and support. Oh, and there is a difference between an ally and an accomplice. Absolutely. And that's why I think it's not even far enough sometimes to be an ally, because too many people are just taking on that title themselves. They're saying, I'm an ally, but don't use the word queer. That was something that came up in our college group at some point that drove me nuts, is that somebody had organized this event and they wanted to have like just a community event where people could come in and they could ask questions. And so they got kind of the most outspoken people who didn't mind if people were a little awkward and didn't know what to ask. You know, when people say like, well, I want to ask a question, but I don't want to offend anybody. And so they just got all the people who like are never offended and are like, as long as you're asking it in good faith, we'll answer anything you got. And they called it Coffee with the Queers. And there was somebody who was in the group who was an ally who was like, ooh, do you think you should call it that? I don't know if I would feel comfortable going to an event called Coffee with the Queers. And I sometimes just say what's on my mind. So I just turned and I said, well, then maybe you're not ready to be an ally. If you need somebody to edit themselves, if you need to like tell somebody that how they choose to describe themselves is inappropriate, then maybe you're not ready to be an ally. Maybe you're not ready. And that's okay. That's okay. I would much rather people acknowledge, like, I'm not in a place where I'm ready to be an ally, than have people just try to take on that mantle without actually being a safe person, because then people go to them and then they will find out in potentially traumatic ways that that person is not actually a safe person, is not actually an ally. And so it's a very dangerous. So I would rather people just be honest and be like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm quite ready for that. Hello, Don. Welcome. I was watching on the big screen when my phone charged up. Well, hello. We're glad that you're here. But accomplices, now that's different, right? Like an ally is just like, I'm gonna come to the protest, and I'm gonna stand beside you, and I'm gonna wear my knitted pussy hat, and I'm gonna hold my sign, and it's gonna be very clever, and then I'm gonna run at the first sign of trouble. And then we have accomplices who are driving the getaway car, right? Like, I'm gonna throw a brick and they're gonna get me out of there. Like the people who are really there, like ride or die, like they're gonna put some skin in the game. They're going to put their asses on the line. Those are the accomplices. Those are the people that we really need. I don't think allyship is even enough anymore, but it's a good place to start. We need allies. We need people who are supporting us. Yeah, I'll throw the brick. I love that. Yes. And I have a brick in my office now because a couple years ago when we had all the crazy Christian group that popped up here in North Dakota and we were getting all the death threats and all that kind of stuff, I told my friend Nancy, I was like, when I was coming down for Bismarck Pride, I said, I need you to find me a brick. And she's like, what? And I was like, I need an old school, like, because so many bricks now, they make them out of different materials and they just look like cement. They're a little gray. I was like, I need one of those like terracotta, like orangey red with the 3 holes. I was like, I need a brick. And she was like, you need a brick. And I was like, yeah, I need a brick. And I have one. I keep it in the office now because so we did a photo shoot and there's somewhere we had this like smoke bomb and I'm standing and I'm like holding out a brick. And that's one of my favorite things to say about Pride is like, may I offer you a brick in these trying times? Because yeah, Pride comes from protest. And I think that we had so many good years that people kind of forgot that. And now that we're backsliding again and things are getting tough, I think some people are kind of realizing like, oh no, like a lot of this was kind of surface level and it can be undone very, very, very quickly. So yes, accomplices. I like that, Deanna. I'm glad you brought that up. So here's a question. Queer used to be a bad term that shouldn't be used. Do I remember that wrong? You do not remember that wrong. Absolutely. And let me tell you, as a kid, I was called queer all the time. I was called the F slur. I was called a sissy. I mean, all of it. Like I was pegged as the gay kid very, very early. So I definitely heard all of that. But queer is one of those things where, and this again gets into in-group language and things like that, because queer now has developed a sort of mainstream application. And so, there are things like queer theory, like that's a whole discipline. Like they study that in colleges. So, in terms of like, if you're talking about queer theory, if you're talking about queer cinema, if you're talking about queer theater, whatever, when you're talking about like an object or a performance or something out there, like using queer is pretty bland, is pretty acceptable for anybody to do. Now, in terms of referring to a person, that's where it's important to listen to how people identify themselves. If people identify as queer, because there are some people, and there are some people my age and some a little bit older who that was such a traumatic term for them and they don't like it. And they don't like that it's called queer theory and they don't like that we include the Q in the LGBTQIA+. That's one of those things that there are certain attitudes that get fixed or whatever. And, if that's somebody's identity and they don't prefer that, I wouldn't use that towards them. There are some people who still try to use it pejoratively. Absolutely, CJ. They still try to do it. But I think that a lot of people have also reclaimed it. And so a lot of people, in terms of in-group language, and that's how I identify myself. So when people are talking about me, I actually would prefer that they refer to my sexuality as queer because that's how I identify. The world it's very easy for people in the world because I understand what I look like, right? And I try to add some zhuzh or whatever and stuff like that. But I understand that I just look like a cisgender dude. I understand that that's what I look like. I have these times where I dress up and drag is kind of this character that I create. But I understand that when people just look at me, they are like, gay, male, and they try to put me in the little boxes. That's why I like queer, because queer is a term that's a little bit slippery. It's a little bit harder to pin down. Because when people say, oh, gay man, they have a box and they have all their preconceived notions and they know what that means to them. And so then they're just like, oh, and then I'm like, well, actually, that doesn't actually really describe how I identify, how I feel, my experiences I've had. And then when people say, oh, queer, what does that mean? And that's what I like about the word queer, is because it doesn't have just one clear, obvious definition. Then people have to say, well, what does that mean? And it opens a conversation. And that's how we get to know each other. And that's how we start to dismantle some of these prejudices, is when we start having these discussions and we let people ask the awkward questions and we answer them. And sometimes that means setting boundaries and saying that's not appropriate, or, would you ask somebody else that same question? Because a lot of times they want to start getting into like sexual stuff and like be very explicit, like who's the man? Who's the woman? All that. And it's like, oh God, okay. Here we go again. But sometimes like meeting that where it is and then being able to set boundaries of like, I'm not going to talk about that, or let's talk about why that isn't the question that you actually want to ask. Let's talk about, all these different things. Having those conversations, that's how we dismantle it. We don't dismantle it by just getting in somebody's face and yelling at them, right? Like if somebody is honestly trying to make a change, if somebody is honestly trying to understand things better, then I think that it does. I'm not saying that people have to do anything. I'm not going to tell people what to do. Here's what I will say, because I do, as a grumpy Gen Xer, I get it. I'm tired. I've been doing this for a long time. I am fucking tired. This whole Dakota Outright thing that blew up, like this kind of shit and stuff has been going on for years and years and years. And it was going on for years before I ever joined the community. Before I was even born, it's been going on. So I'm tired. When I tell you that I am to the bone exhausted with some of the shit. However, I do think that sometimes if we care about progress, if we care about there being progress, I do think we have a little bit of a responsibility to help with that education, to be available as a resource for people to talk to. The reason why, because there's nothing that I hate more, and it's always the little like younger millennials or whatever that are always like, you at Google is free. Like, you don't ask me. That's not my job to educate you. First of all, I don't believe that person who says that has ever used Google to look up anything having to do with anything subjective, and especially anything as important as sexual identity, gender identity, any of that. I don't believe that they've ever used Google to look up anything like that. Because if you've used Google for anything subjective like that, number one, it's a hellscape. Like, it does not give you anything useful. It will target you to different results based on where you live. So if you live in a red state, good luck researching that on your own. You're going to get a whole lot of Christian fundamentalism. And it's going to, like, that's the kind of thing where, anytime something happens with like police brutality and Black Lives Matter and all of that kind of thing, the people who say, oh, just Google it. Google is free. Like, why are you asking me all this kind of stuff? Those are the people that then those white women, we all know those white women, right? They go out and they're like, well, let me Google. And then they get a Candace Owens video and then they post that, because that's what happens when you just send people out without any direction, without any sort of like recommendation, without any like guidance. And you just say, well, Google is free. Those are the people that go find a Candace Owens video that already agrees with everything they say. Or for queer stuff, they find a Milo Yiannopoulos video and they just repost this shit that already says all the hateful things that they already believe. And they're like, well, I did my own research. And so that's kind of like with COVID, that came up all the time. I'm like, well, I do my own research. Oh, your version of research is like a bunch of conservative moms in a mommy group on Facebook. That's not fucking research. If you're going to do your own research, you go to the authorities, you go to the CDC and find out what they are saying. I think that we let that get out of control and we let too many people get away with that. We let too many people say, oh, just do your own research so then you understand. because some people then that doesn't translate into what actual research is. If you've done any sort of academic pursuit, you know that doing your own research doesn't mean just finding whatever. You have to evaluate sources, you have to vet sources, you have to look for coherence among sources, you have to go to like the expert. If you're going to talk about COVID, you're going to go to the CDC. Like that's where it matters. All of that kind of stuff. It's so frustrating. And so I do think we have some responsibility. Now, I think we also have to hone our like, our perception of like, is this person asking in bad faith? Because if somebody is asking in bad faith, saying fuck you and giving them a double bird, I think is absolutely appropriate. Absolutely appropriate. Because we can tell. And it's always the people with good intentions that will usually like very meekly, and they'll be like, I just don't want to offend anybody. And it's like, I can usually tell within 5 seconds if somebody is asking because they really don't understand and they are generally curious and they honestly want to know. And the people who are sea lioning or who are trying to play devil's advocate, or they have like some kind of argument, some sort of anti-queer argument that's couched underneath something that sounds, those are the ones who bring in all these like hypotheticals of, all of these different things of, like, if you knew that a baby was going to be gay, would you still support abortion? And it's like, what is this fucking world that you're trying to construct to just create this thing where they try to create these like hypotheticals where you're always wrong no matter what you pick, right? And so we know when people are arguing in bad faith, we can usually suss that out pretty easily. And if you're not feeling comfortable answering those questions, then just don't open yourself up to people like for those questions. But I think for those of us who are out and who are well established in our identities, I think responsibility, I don't know if that's the perfect word, but I do think we have some responsibility to sort of help with that education and not just be like, well, go Google it. That way lies danger. That way lies death. It's not good. Hello, Retro Toy Princess. How are you doing? Let me check out. So when people ask me if I've had the surgery, I ask them if they're wondering whether I had a velvet treasure pouch or magic princess wand. It makes them think. Yes, that one has been, and the obsession with surgeries and all of that, as if that somehow is an integral part of anybody's identity, like as if you have to have had surgeries A, B, C, or D to claim an identity, as if that's very frustrating. I definitely understand that. Just Google it. That kind of bluntness shutdowns the questioner's curiosity, and it's not what we want. Exactly. When you're just like, it's not my responsibility to educate you, and it's like, but if you're not giving them, even if you're tired, I get it, because like I said, I'm tired, and there are days where I'm like, you know what, I don't want to engage with this right now. Not even giving them like a resource to turn to of like, you know what, I can't really engage with this right now. I don't have the spoons. I don't have the whatever metaphor you want to use. Here are some places that you can check out. These are some people to listen to. These are some people to look up on YouTube that talk about these issues that you can kind of, I am open to questions, but I also, for those times where I really don't have the energy, excuse me, pretty girl, I have my recommend, my things that I know that I can recommend to people of like, hey, go check this out. Like, I don't have time. CJ, I hope those questions are asked in good faith because I think they sound incredibly personal and nobody's business. Yeah, that's the stuff, but I don't feel the need to ask. Yeah, that's the thing, is that because it becomes this sort of thing of a lot of times when people are asking specifically like about surgeries and things, even if they think they're coming from a good place, even if they're not like, even if they're well-intentioned, we all know about the road to hell, but even if they are like well-intentioned, a lot of those people underneath that curiosity is they are not treating that person as a person. They are treating them as an object that they want to like pick up and examine and like, peel back the layers like an onion and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, but that's not respectful. They would feel just as offended if somebody was like, well, what have you had done to your genitals? Like, have you had any surgeries on there? Have you had a boob job? Like, and some people are very open about those kinds of things too, like cisgender people or whatever, which is also gender affirming care. We've talked about that before. But if somebody treated them as an object and started getting into those very personal things that are not about getting to know them as a human, they don't think about that. They don't think about how offensive that is. People are saying hello. The appropriate response is, have you had your colonoscopy? And when they get pissy about it, oh, we're not just talking medical history freely. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good response. I like that. You should get colonoscopies. I need to schedule a colonoscopy at some point, and I just have not, because I'm now they're recommending for 45 and over. So getting old, man. Sucks. That's too intrusive. I don't even like people asking me why I limp. Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing of like, it applies to so many different things where it's not just about that. This is a good like representation of that. But sometimes people, it's like, it's just not your business. It's not your business to talk about, to ask questions about, to comment on. That happens a lot with weight as well, weight loss, weight gain, all these kinds of things. And I luckily have very like thoughtful friends who because people will just like comment. And like, so I have this friend who I know through the Bismarck shows and stuff, where she lost a significant amount of weight, and people were like, oh my god, you've lost so much weight, you look so good. And she would just answer them with like, thanks, I got cancer and almost died. Because that's what caused her weight loss, is that she was fighting a very aggressive cancer, and it led to a significant amount of weight loss. And so people would just like, but they would be like, you go girl, like you look so good, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, people don't think about, they just have this idea of, we should reward X, we should punish Y, right? So losing weight is always good. Gaining weight is always bad. And so I have very thoughtful friends, because I did for a while. And when I go back and look at old videos, I think I'm on a bit of an upswing now, but I had lost some weight. I think, I don't know, because that's another thing, is like, I don't own a scale. I don't go in for all that bullshit, but like, and like clothes fit different, but not in ways that you would expect that would just be like, obviously you've lost weight or you've gained weight. I felt like my body was just like shifting in different directions. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know but I had like 2 or 3 different friends who all were like very cagey about like, they're like, I don't want this to sound the wrong. I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I don't want to be offensive, but have you lost weight? And I was like, I don't know, because that's the thing, is like, I had unexplained weight loss. And now, like I said, I think now I'm my the little Job of the Hut situation is a little bit fuller again. So I don't know if I feel like I'm maybe on a bit of an upswing. But that's the thing, is like, people sometimes don't want to talk about that, because, unexplained weight loss, when you're not trying anything, usually doesn't lead to anything good. If you're just losing weight and you don't know why, that's usually not something that ends in a good outcome. So like, all of these kinds of things, and weight, and injuries or disabilities or things like that, like, it's not anybody's business. People shouldn't be commenting on people's bodies, their presentations. If you want to be like supportive of, somebody changed their hair color. I love it when people tell me they love my hair color. Although, like I said, I'm still liking the baby pink, but I'm not happy with how this hair color is fading. But if people want to say they like my pink hair, like, that's innocuous. That's fine. Like, cancer doesn't give people pink hair, right? So like, it's not gonna, obviously I did this to myself. Or if you get a new haircut, or all that kind of stuff, I don't ask the lady why she's missing an arm. Not my business. Exactly. Like, when articles rave about a celebrity weight loss and then the celebrity gains it back, imagine how that, yeah, all this kind of, we can only, but then they also sometimes can get too thin. And then so it's just people telling people that their body, their presentation is not right. And it's like, that's not okay. Like, that's not acceptable. Sometimes the weird questions can accidentally be affirming, and that's a bundle of mixed feelings. Like, are you pregnant? Like, wow, no, and thanks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's one of those things that like, and that was one of the first places where even I, as a plus size person, like, I had to like learn it, and then I internalized it. Let me tell you, I don't care what's happening. I don't care if you've asked me to take you to the hospital, and you're in the back seat of my car. You might be crowning. I'm not going to ask you if you're pregnant. Like, I'm just not going to do it. If you want to tell me you're welcome to volunteer that information. That's not something I'm going to ask, because that is so loaded and so tied to so many things of just like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't care how obvious I think it might be, or somebody else might think it might be. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to ask that question. I'm not going to. And if somebody, I don't care if they are 9 months pregnant, big as hell, and they're like, I'm having a baby, I'll be like, oh, wow, that's great for you. Like, I'm not going to be like, I knew it. Like, no, that's not. And so like, that was the first kind of place that I internalized it. And then starting to like, oh yeah, let's maybe extend that out to other ways that people present. And there's probably still blind spots that I have. Again, I never come on here because I think I figured it all out, or because I think I do everything perfectly. I come on here to like talk through it, and sometimes people will bring something out and will be like, oh yeah, that's a blind spot that I didn't even think of. I lost a lot of weight, and people asked lots of questions they shouldn't have been asking. My response became, I wanted to be more attractive to people. I wish I could just not care like you. So I don't think my friend Melanie will mind me telling this story. So when she and her husband got married, and Melanie is also a sturdy gal like me, and so she was like preparing me, because she's like, Ron's aunt is going to come, and Ron's aunt loves to tell people that she wears the exact same size dress that she wore when she entered nursing school in 1952. She loves to tell people that, and she's like, I hope you don't hate me. I sat you next to her at the reception. Or no, not the reception. It was the like family dinner the night before. I sat you next to her. She's like, I just need you to run interference. I just need you. And so she put me like next to the aunt, and then also to somebody else who like was like kind of a problem person. So I was like in between these two people, and she was like, we decided that that was the best way to approach it, because when we were talking about this, she said that her husband thought that what she should say if the aunt said anything to her was just tell her that Ron likes to fuck fat girls. And I'm just like, okay, so that's the first draft. Interesting. And then she said, what I thought I would say is, she's like, I thought that if she said anything to me, I would say, well, I was raised in Texas, where we have all kinds of good food and people, really celebrate through eating. And so rather than worrying about my weight, I just focused on becoming a decent person. And so, which I was like, okay, we love that draft as well. And so, so those were the two potential responses. They were like, so they're like, just be prepared that she may say awful things to you, about us, about anybody. We don't know. Just like try to corral her, like try to minimize the damage. And I was like, I'm on it. Yeah. I never comment or ask about a pregnancy. Yeah, I just don't do it. I don't do it. There's so much time, and like with fertility issues and miscarriages and infertility and all of these kinds of things that can lead to all different kind of changes in the body. It's not my business, and I'm not here to like, I'm not going to open that can of worms and cause harm, even if it comes from a place of, oh, I want to celebrate something with you. I'm not going to do it. Let people come through. Allison stepping up with the burns as usual. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Oh my gosh, Allison, that's priceless. I love that. I asked some lady when she was due, and thank goodness she thought I asked her, what did she do? Yeah. Yeah, I don't ask. I don't, honestly, I'm serious. Like, if you are asking me to take you to the hospital and like, I see like water hit, like liquid hit the floor because your water broke, unless you tell me straight out, not my business. You want to go to the hospital? I'll take you to the hospital. I don't have to know why. I don't have to know what you're doing. If you want to volunteer that information, I am welcome. I'm ready to take it in. I'll welcome it in. I will learn. But someone asked a friend of mine, when are you due? And she was, yeah, all that kind of stuff. I have friends who've gotten asked that all the time. So you have to kind of be ready. Like, you have to be ready with your like snappy response or whatever. And it's like, oh no, Plus, your stomach does not go completely flat after birth, like in the movies. They might have had the baby weeks. Exactly. I don't, if it's not something, I've heard people say this before, if it's not something that you can fix in under a minute, you don't have to comment on it. So if somebody's got like a feather stuck in their hair or they've got spinach in their teeth, that you can comment on and be like, hey, did you know you've got this thing? Because that you can fix within a minute. You can pull the feather out, you can straighten the hair, because my hair, I come to work looking all kinds of ways. Like I work by myself, so I often don't think to always make sure. So I'll like have like my hair will be, I washed it this morning, so it's actually like staying, but it could be like all like I might have hair like this and somebody might be like, what's going on with your hair? And I'll be like, what do you mean? That's something that I can then do a little finger comb and there we go. Or 48 years ago. The lady responded, oh, I'm not working right now. I had a baby recently. Oh, so it would have maybe worked out in your favor, but I would tread carefully. I would tread carefully. Yes. Oh, yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of what this is going. This was a little bit shorter. It was a little bit ranty, but to review for anybody that might have joined late, I stop using family friendly for any of your LGBTQIA plus for any of your events really, but especially for those. It does not give you any information, any useful information about what actually that event entails or what it's about, and it feeds into all of this anti-queer Christian fundamentalism that uses family all of the time to try to evoke what they think is the correct family. And so when you say something is family friendly, I'm all about reclaiming words and I'm all about playing with language. I was an English major. I love all that kind of stuff. I recognize that language changes and evolves and all of that kind of stuff. But that term family friendly is so enmeshed in all of that. I don't see a reason to reclaim it when it doesn't give us any useful information. And it doesn't start a conversation. Like the word queer to me starts a conversation and it allows us to kind of talk about things. Just saying family friendly, because nobody who uses that term is open to a discussion of, okay, what do you mean by that? Whose family? Which family? Is this throuple full of kinksters? Is that the family that you mean? And those people sometimes raise children. Kinky people, people who have sex, people who enjoy fucking, those people have children and raise children and know how to like be age appropriate for different venues and different activities. So like, are those people welcome? Because they're not part of what you're envisioning, that they're not part of what you're talking about. But like, so what does family mean? Like in the AIDS crisis, when people abandoned their loved ones and it was all the like lesbians that came in and were caretakers and sat with people while they died. Like, are we friendly to that family who abandoned that person, who left them behind, who wouldn't claim their body? Is that who we're family friendly towards? Or is it your chosen family? Because my chosen family looks very different from what the people who say family friendly often mean. So I don't like it. Respectability politics, absolutely. I'm so tired of the get along gays. I'm so tired of it. It's so bullshit that so like, what if you are a kinky, freaky, sex worker, sexually liberated kind of person? Do you not deserve rights? Do you not deserve to be treated the same as any other queer person? Like, so what's the purpose of calling that out? Like, unless you're trying to insinuate that that's better, just use terms that make sense. This is an all ages event. This is a 13 plus event. This is 18 plus. This is 21 plus. That's useful information and it doesn't feed into that whole religious fundamentalism bullshit. I don't like it. Well, aren't straight people kinky? Yes, sometimes straight people are kinky too. Like but that's okay. That's the thing, is all this stuff, all these people who want to complain about drag queens and act like drag is this like lewd adult kind of things. All those people watch Tootsie and Some Like It Hot and Geraldine from the Flip Wilson Show and Mrs. Doubtfire and Juana Man. It's only a problem when it's queer people doing it. And that's the problem with their argument. And that's where their argument falls apart, is that they've been enjoying George Burns. They've been enjoying drag as entertainment for years, but it's never a problem until it's a queer person, until it's not divorced from that queerness, from that identity. And so when somebody takes a queer art form, and drag is a queer art form, and then it's sort of sanitized and sort of put on this sort of straight representation, then it's okay, then it's acceptable. But somehow, if it's a queer person, it's a problem. It has nothing to do with what the presentation actually is. It has no bearing on what the outfit is, what the song choice is, what the behavior, the dance, whatever is. It's just that it's a queer person doing it, or a trans person doing it, or a non-binary person doing it. That's when there's a problem, and that's why it's an issue. Hello, Joe. How are we doing? Hope you're doing well. Fabulous Joe. It makes me want to finish my stage musical, the Ann Coulter Horror Picture Show. I would love that. Ann Coulter, I did enjoy when Ann Coulter was on one of the roasts and people just eviscerated her. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. Oh, yeah. So just use terms that are respectful. That's the kind of thing. And that's with this channel, I do like to create safe space, and I do want to create a space where people do feel like they can come in and they can ask questions and they can post opposing viewpoints and kind of things. And we've kind of cultivated like the people who are here. And unfortunately, because this is a horizontal live, it's probably only going to be the people who are here who even see this, because YouTube doesn't give a shit about sharing lives that are not vertical. And so because the technology just wouldn't let me broadcast from my phone, then that's all who's going to see it. But I'm absolutely open to that. But I don't think that people who are actively working against, that's the whole thing, like with outing too, that's kind of related to this, is that I am opposed to outing, asterisk, unless you are actively working against the queer community. If you are closeted and you are voting Republican and you are proposing things on the school board that are anti-queer, if you are proposing things in legislature, if you are doing canvassing for anti-queer activists and candidates, if you're doing that, you deserve to be outed, period. End of story. If your business is contributing to anti-queer politicians and anti-queer causes, you deserve to be outed. Absolutely. Let me tell you, and I've said this before, if I was 20 years old and skinny and hot, I would be fucking my way through Washington, and I would be creating dossiers, receipts, timelines, Uber receipts. I'd dropping pins on my phone. I would be collecting so much information, so much evidence. I would be taking them down. I would be weaponizing the pussy to take down Lady G. I would be after her. I would be on her like white on rice. Forget about it. Forget about it. We need the twinks to stand up. The twinks have had it too easy for too long. It's time for them to step up and do their fair share. And they need to be working these Republicans and outing everybody, because I find it fascinating that, do you notice how Grindr only crashes when there's a big conservative event? When there's a bit like Charlie Kirk's funeral, the Republican National Convention, that's when Grindr crashes. Grindr doesn't crash during New York Pride, during San Francisco Pride, Minneapolis Pride, Seattle Pride, Phoenix Pride, Miami Pride. It never crashes then. It only crashes at these big conservative events, because people who are going to Pride have processed their identity and have dealt with it in a healthy way. And so it's all of these closet cases. So clearly they're out there. Clearly there's a lot of them. And I say, let's start knocking those closet doors down. I'm against outing unless you deserve it. I'm never going to say oh, we should never out anybody, because some people deserve it. Sorry. That is a hill I will die on. It is, just is. Two genderqueer kids got lost in a storm going to visit their gender studies professor and end up at a dinner party at Ann Coulter's house. Her Adam's apple has a soul. Allison! Oh, that is too much. Too much. 9, 10 years ago now, my current roommate outed me to our entire friend group. Yeah, like I think that like normal, regular citizens should not be outed. I'm so against outing. It's unsafe. People should be able to control that narrative for themselves. Asterix. And I don't know what I didn't know you then, CJ. If you were like campaigning for Republicans, then I would say, well, you rolls the dice, you takes your chances. I don't imagine you were doing that because you are a fine, upstanding citizen who is thoughtful and kind to queers and not working against our community. So I don't imagine that would have been your experience. I was sort of outed. This is the funny thing to me. This is where it's kind of darkly humorous to me, is that I was, like I said, I was pegged as the gay kid from the jump. Like from as soon as I could like walk and talk and encounter other people, they were like, gay. So like I was called a fag and a sissy and queer and all this kind of stuff for years and 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 years. And then I go to college, I come out, and at one point I was interviewed in the school newspaper, and our town hairdresser was in town for her son also went to the same college that I went to. She saw the paper and like brought it back home and like showed it to people. And suddenly people were like, is Chris gay? Is Chris gay? And it's like, you done been new. You've been calling me gay since I could walk. What are you talking about? Now you're confused. Now when you have evidence, now when I am quoted in a piece of print journalism, I mean, it was a school newspaper, so it wasn't fine, high quality journalism, but it was journalism. Like now you have evidence and you're like, what? So you're clutching the pearls? Like you've been telling me, and that's why I think is so interesting. I don't know if anybody has seen any of the clips from, I want to see it. I'm trying to find a way. It's not, you have to kind of sail the high seas, if you know what I'm saying, because right now it's only like legally available to stream in the UK. But Russell T Davies' new show, Tiptoe, if you've seen clips from it, there are some really powerful kind of ideas that are brought up. And it's the story of these two neighbors. One of them is gay and they're longtime neighbors. And apparently it like really kind of just devolves very quickly. But he's having a discussion, and it's Alan Cumming, who I love. And he's having a discussion with this neighbor, and the neighbor makes some flippant remark about pronouns or whatever, right? Like, because we're always got to talk about how people are how the snowflakes are so upset about pronouns or whatever. And Alan Cumming has this great monologue that is so good, where he's just like, pronouns, that was all you lot. That was all you, because you're never fucking satisfied. It's like, from the time we can walk, you're like, oh, you're a girl. Oh, you're a girl. Oh, you're a girl. And like, what are you? What are you? What are you? And so, you know what? So we grew up and we gave in. And so then he became a she and she became a they. And we told you, okay, this is what we are. And you're still not satisfied. You kept asking us, what are you? What are you? And then when we tell you, then that's not good enough. And so this monologue, I always say that I'm going to reshare a thing on my posts tab, and I always kind of forget. I'm going to try to remember to find that video and reshare it, because it's really, really good, because it is talking about this idea of people will tell you who you are, and then when you tell them back, then they're like offended or they're confused or whatever. And it's like, you've been saying this for years, but now I took the power out of it because I said, yeah, I am gay, and there's nothing wrong with the word gay, and there's nothing wrong with being gay. And so now you're all like uptight because you thought that you had power in that word. And now that I said, yeah, duh. You're not the only one who figured it out before I did. Congratulations. But now I figured it out and I'm taking any power out of that word. Then they're upset again. I'm just like, well, you can't be that. You can't choose that. I mean, the same people who will like say to their buddy, if he's got like one nail painted, and they'll be like, how's your vagina? Are you on your period? And then they'll be like, but then they'll turn around and mock trans people and be like, putting on a dress doesn't make you a woman. All this. And it's like, what do you want? Like, what do you actually want? What is your concept of how the world works? Because even when we try to fit that concept, as flawed and as hateful and as bigoted as it is, it's still not good enough. It's still not enough to you. And I just thought it was so powerful. And that show looks like it's going to be really good. I'm really very excited. Thanks, Jen. It sucked pretty hard, I can imagine. I was trying hard to hatch, and after that, it finally gradually happened. Yeah, and that's outing people. I'm not here for it unless they deserve it. And I lost the false friends too, so Dipshit kind of helped me out in a way. And that's one of the things where that's why I think I have very limited trauma around my coming out, because there was something, even when I wasn't out to myself, when I was in high school, I wasn't like engaging with it in a very like active way, but I did have this idea through most of high school where I was like, these people suck. These people suck. They are terrible. They are awful. But you know what? You're going to graduate from high school and you're going to leave this town and you never have to talk to one of these fucking people again if you don't want to. You don't have to. And that's what got me through high school, was just the idea of like, if you don't want to, you don't ever have to talk to these fucking people again. And for most of them, I didn't. And I still haven't for most of them. And so it's like, you don't have to. And then I got to the big city. That was what was lucky for me, was that I came out before I realized that Grand Forks was just a slightly bigger small town. I thought I was going to the big city. We used to go to Minot. And of course, like, we're from Bowbell. So like, you go to Minot, that's where you have to lock your car, because that's a city, right? And then I went to Grand Forks, which was like twice the size of Minot. I was like, I am in the big city. And so I was too stupid to realize that it wasn't actually a big city. And that worked to my advantage, because then I was like, I can be any, and that was part of my coming out process. And this is something, maybe there's trauma around this or whatever, but coming out for me, once I left, I already had this mindset of I never have to see those people again. And so then it was just one little extra hop of saying, like, you have to come to terms with the fact that you might lose every person in your life. Because things were better in the mid 90s, but they were not great. There were still lots of stories about people being completely disowned by their families, kicked out, cut off, all these kinds of things. And so before I could do any of that sort of coming out, I had to come to terms with this idea of, okay. And so with friends, I was like, I had left all those people behind and I had all new friends and I made them in that school year. And so I was like, well, I've known these people less than a year. If I lose all of them, guess what? I'll come back next year and I'll make new friends. Like, that's fine. But then it was like, okay, what if, and I had to kind of like mentally go through and be like, okay, what if your mother never talks to you again? What if your uncle never talks to you again? What if your aunt never talks to you again? What if your brother never talks to you again? And I had to kind of become okay with that eventuality to be able to then go through that coming out process. And so in a way, obviously my coming out was much better than it could have been, because I anticipated the worst and then just let people kind of surprise me. So I had to go to this place of like, what if you're starting over 100% from scratch, from zero? And I didn't have all the answers about how I would completely like support myself or all that kind of stuff. I didn't know, but I was like, it got to a point where I was like, but that has to be the option. Because I also went into a pretty deep depression my freshman year of college, and it was related to this idea of, I had already gotten to this new place. I was starting to like figure out this is what was going on, and I was like, I can't keep bottling in. I won't be here anymore. It's not good. I can't do it. Let's see. So they did kind of help you out in a bad way, but yeah, kind of help you out in a way. Yeah. That's horrible. Absolutely. You may not have to lock your doors vigilantly in a small town, but you do have to worry more about a cross on your front yard if you aren't white, cis, and had enough. Exactly. Yeah, there's still the potential for violence and that kind of thing. Good riddance to the false friends. Absolutely. It actually worked out for the better somehow. Yeah, like I only had one. I had one person that, And she was somebody that I used to work in Medora. Medora is like North Dakota's tourist trap kind of place. And so I had a lot of friends that were from there, and a few of them came to the same college that I did. And so when I came out, there was one that she was just like, she's like, and she was one of the, she was so the typical like Christian good girl, like cute and big doe eyes, big blue eyes and blonde hair. And she was just like, I still just love you as a person, but I just don't want to hear about any part of like, I don't want to hear about that part of your life. And I had to be very abrupt with her. And I said, well, you know what? I don't know what you think that part of my life is, because I'm not just gay in the bedroom. It's not like that's an outfit that I put on when I go to have sexy time. Like, I'm gay all the time. I'm gay when I go to class. I'm gay when I have lunch. I'm gay right now having this conversation with you. And so if you're saying you don't want to hear about that part of my life, then you're saying you don't want to be a part of my life, because that's the option, right? And so I did get a chance to act out that conversation a little bit of telling somebody like, this is the truth of who I am. And if you need a little bit of time to adjust to that, I can understand that. I can be sympathetic to that, because we have a relationship based on who you thought I was. And now I'm telling you who I really am. So I understand that there could be some adjustment, but I'm also telling you that I'm not going to reduce myself. Excuse me, pretty girl. I'm not going to reduce myself for you. And so this is the option. This is either you do engage with that part of my life, or you're just not in my life, because it is my whole life. It's not certain times or certain activities or certain whatever. It is who I am. I'm gay at the grocery store. And now I'm old and gay at the grocery store. So I have opinions on things like the music that they play and what brands they stock. So who knew that that's the other thing that I find so funny. Can I just say that, like, as somebody who has ended up having these like weird like moments of minor virality, that it's all around kink, when I'm like actually one of the least kinky people that I know. I'm just not that kinky, but it's the idea, it's the principle of it. Like, I don't have, well, I mean, and I guess some people would consider me kinky because I'm a drag queen and because I wear drag regalia sometimes to Pride and things like that. But we have already talked about that wearing drag is not sexual activity, just the same way that, but I'm not like, I don't have a pup hood. I'm not doing like any of that kind of stuff, but I somehow also have like become the person that people want to fight with about this in some contexts. It's very strange. Let's see. You might not have a perfect family, but we're still here and we always will wait. Yes. Yeah, that's the thing, is I just was like, well, we'll see how it goes. And it ended up being a lot better than it certainly could have been, or that I expected it to be, or whatever. But yeah, there are people that I know that haven't had that experience. There are people that I know that haven't been, welcomed back by the family and things like that. So I recognize that, like, my coming out experience, I'm very lucky. So I don't have a lot of trauma or negative feelings about that, because it overall went pretty well. But part of it was getting to that place of, if we have to start from zero, we'll start from zero. If that's what we have to do, that's what we'll do. We'll figure it out. And then I didn't have to do that. So I was very lucky. Yeah. But yeah, I did get pseudo outed. Not to anybody that I cared about. I don't think that beautician who like went home with the magazine, with the school newspaper, and was showing it around. I don't think she showed it to anybody that I would have cared anyway. Because it's people that I'm like, who are you? Like, it's very, I don't know who that, it's a very Mariah Carey. Like, I don't know who that is. Like, I don't know who you are. I've left town. You do not matter to me anymore. And so all those people, and now I'm at the point where I'm just like, if anybody wants to have an opinion on my life, I'm like, which of my bills will you be paying? Yeah, like, I expect you to pay a bill if you expect to have an opinion on my life. Which bill are you going to be paying? Oh, you don't like that I'm queer? Like, well, let me, I could forward you my internet bill, or maybe the light bill. Like, which one would you like to get? Both? I'd take that. Then you can really have some opinions. The more you want to pay for it, the more opinions you can have. But it's all these people who don't, and that's why I love Marsha P. Johnson, who we talked about in the this queer history and Stonewall video. I love that. So she gave, obviously, that's her chosen name, Marsha P. Johnson. And people would ask her, what does the P stand for? And she said it stands for pay it no mind. And I'm like, absolutely. If you're not paying my bills, I'm going to pay you no mind. If you're not, what is it? I forget where I heard this one, because this one also, I'm like, absolutely. If you're not feeding me, fucking me, or financing me, then why do you think you get to have an opinion about me? Excuse me. That, like, no. If you think you're going to have an opinion, I've got a Venmo. I've got Venmo and PayPal. Take your pick. Let me know. Absolutely being okay and at peace letting people go. Absolutely. Some people don't need to still be in your life. And I know that that's hard for people. And as you get older, it feels harder and harder to make friends. Some people just don't need to be in your life. The last person who had an opinion on my life unwisely did not remember all of the things I knew about her that she didn't want her husband or kids to know. Yeah, sometimes it's like, if we're gonna judge, we're gonna go there. Okay, great, my turn. She was pretty much a pain in everybody's ass, so she probably didn't impress or shake up as many people as she would have liked. Yeah, she always was kind of a pain in the ass. But she was so gossipy and so just like, oh, strange. Yeah. But I was like, I heard about that and I was like, really? Really? Like that's what she's spending her. Okay. I mean, go off, queen, whatever. Like, okay, that's what you want to do. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like as I talk, I also am like such a fidgety, and so I just like this mirror has been very spotty, and it got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. So I pulled out. I've been like cleaning little bits. There's some stuff where I got some makeup remover on the table. Yeah. Is there a point? Is there a final kind of conclusion that we want to come to? Yeah, some people think being kinky is all about, that it's not all about just sex. It's not all sexual activity. There's other things. And the costumes, that's the other thing, is that like, even if people are into the sexual part of it, nobody's fucking at the Pride Parade. Nobody's fucking at the Pride Parade. I promise you. Because anytime people are like, well, that shouldn't be at Pride, that shouldn't be shown, it's like, what shouldn't be? What are you actually talking about? Because when you just say kink, what are you describing? And invariably, they're talking about the gear, the costumes, or the gender, like the non-conforming gender presentation, like the butch lesbians, the dykes on bikes, the Leathermen, whatever it is. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. Nobody's fucking at the Pride Parade. Calm down, unclench. My final thought is, if you have an enemy and you know their address, get it to me and I'll send them a birthday card full of glitter. Yeah, I like that. I do like that. I wish that had caught on. Do you remember? Because there was an anniversary recently of when, what is her name? Phyllis Schlafly? It's kind of a weird name, so I always forget. Phyllis Schlafly, but she was, no, not Phyllis Schlafly. She was awful too, but Anita Bryant, the orange juice lady, who was like campaigning against anti-queer. She got hit in the face with a pie. Oh, that footage was circulating recently, and I loved it. I was here for it. And I loved that, like, I feel like sometime around, it might have even been before Trump's first campaign, but I feel like sometime before that, it became a thing where people were going to like political events for Republicans and like meet and greets and stuff. And they were bringing like little, like very concealed bags of glitter and would like glitter bomb them like in their face. And I was just like, I am here for that. I wish that had caught on more. Absolutely. Before my skin sensitivity issues got so severe, I would always wear a collar that had nothing to do with it. Yeah. A costume is not sexual activity. It's not. Anita Bryant's Pi Day is my favorite holiday. Yeah, I laugh every time I watch it. I'll watch it 17 times in a row and laugh each time. Matt will come into the room and say, Anita Bryant again. Yes. Oh God, yeah, that just came up recently, and so I was watching that video, and it just brings joy to my heart. It just brings so much joy to my heart. I love that. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Or like, I'm here for it all that time when like karma steps in. Every time people were posting that video of like the ice agents who were slipping on the ice, that it just brings joy to my heart. Like when karma kicks in, it brings joy. I sent it to you. At least it was a fruit pie, and I can't. Yeah, I just I love it. I love when people get a little bit of karma because we live in a world where people often don't get what they deserve in a good way and in a bad way. It doesn't happen. And I am frustrated by that. And I think that so when things like that happen, I'm just like, a little brief moment to remind us that it's not all darkness like that. I just love it. I'm here for it. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for this Pride Talk. Thank you, everybody who came. Hopefully, I don't know, I'll maybe try to. I mean, my post tab, I think, just goes to people um, who are subscribed already. So I'll maybe try to share this on my Facebook or something. I'm frustrated that this is probably going to get a lot fewer views than the other Pride Chat just because it ended up being one of the horizontal instead of on the phone. I don't know why it wouldn't connect. That was why I had held off on doing lives for so long, is because it's the same kind of issue that I was having when I first started trying to do lives, is that it wasn't even the buffering thing, because lately we've had the buffering in the first like 5 minutes and then it usually goes away. This one was just like, it didn't even buffer. Like the first time it started to buffer and just never reconnected. It just spun and spun. And I think Mama Champagne was there and she was saying that she could still hear me and I was still talking. But like the chat went away and everything was just the like, spinny, 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 spin, and it just never stopped. And then after that, it wouldn't even spin. It would just say like not connected. And then it would say try again or end stream. And like if I said try again, I couldn't even exit out of the live. I would have to wait until it did whatever it tried to do for like 45 seconds. And that warning would come up again and then I could end the stream. But I love you, Jen. Oh, I love you too, Allison. I'm happy you exist and thrive. And in 30 years, I look forward to still knowing you. Oh, in 30 years, I hope I'm somewhere relaxing and not doing as much of this shit. But I will still know you. I will have gone off into the woods to become a woods witch at that point. But send a raven. We'll have a fantastic pen pal situation. So it's very enjoyable. And thanks, everyone. Yes, everybody have a good rest of your evening. Let's see if I can remember my outro while we're sitting here, now that I'm all confused because it's on my computer. Thank you, everybody, for stopping in. If you are here in the chat, definitely think about circling back around once this becomes a video. Since I'm not doing it on my phone, it probably will go straight and be a video right away. That's another YouTube shenanigan. But I would love it if you'd circle back around, help me feed the beast, help me feed the algorithm, and leave your comments. Replay crew, we already know you rock, so we would love to hear your comments down below. We love and appreciate you being here as well. While you are down there, don't forget that you can give me that thumbs up to tell me that you appreciated this video, you appreciated this chat, you appreciated the 6 attempts it took me to actually go live today. Or if you are like, I'm an Anita Bryant fan, she never should have been pied, you're a bitch for saying so, go ahead and give me that thumbs down. It is all engagement. The algorithm isn't a picky bitch, and neither am I. And while you're down there, don't forget that you can hit that subscribe button and become part of the Champagne Dreamers, become part of the family, and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads. I try really hard to make sure I have at least one video or live per week, and I try to sprinkle it among glam, geek, and gore. And for you toy fans, my last video was Barbie, and who even is she? Like, I'm almost all the way done with my She-Ra Part 1, so we're about to have more vintage toy goodness. The last video was on Sunday, so it may even come out this week. I always try to hold off and be like, well, I'll save it till the next week, and then I can't. I'm so excited when it's done that I just put it out. So that's coming very soon, She-Ra Part 1, and and we have lives all the time. So I try to have at least one a week, and sometimes, if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, you might even get a bonus video. Ooh, family friendly horrific. So stupid. If you'd like to chat, banter, or commiserate between uploads, all of my social media will be linked down in the description box below, including a link to my website. Just pretend it's there, The World of Champagne at JanessaJ.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. Thank you, everybody. Hello, Grace. Hello. Not hello, Grace. Goodbye, Grace. We said hello to you earlier. Goodbye, Grace and Dion and Janet and Don and CJ and Allison and who else was here? Rose was here earlier. And if I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. I suppose I could scroll. Oh, then I acted like that was a touchscreen, and it definitely was not. Goodbye. Is there anybody else that I've missed in our fabulous little crew? Just Joe. Fabulous Joe. Goodbye to Joe. Janet, did I say goodbye to Janet? And then sometimes I think I get confused about what I've actually said. So I think have I said goodbye to everybody? Leia or Leah. I think it's spelled like Princess Leia, so maybe Leia. Hello, goodbye. Hello, goodbye. I think that's everybody. If I miss anybody, just know that I'm a poor scroller and I'm not very observant. So thank you, everybody, for stopping by. I love and appreciate all of you. There's one more Wednesday Pride Chat that is next week, and that is going to be just queer cinema in a more general sense. We're going to talk about Tu Wong Fu versus Priscilla. Hopefully we'll be back on the phone so that we can do it vertical and it'll go out to more people. But thank you, everybody who stopped by. I love and appreciate all of you. And until I see you again, bye. The awkward ending of the stream. I haven't been on a computer for so long. There it is. Okay. All right, bye.